the online globe charade starring Simon Dan and, of course, Dave McKeegan. These two were the top pantomime stars on the scientifically impossible globe Earth circuit. But of course, because they defend things that are scientifically impossible, it's rather easy to expose them, as we're about to see. And first up, we got Dan. Dan thought it'd be clever to cite a 50-minute Hollywood production as proof of the scientifically impossible globe Earth being a reality. In his deluded mind, he thought this 50-minute Hollywood production would erase all the fails, the harnesses, the hairspray fetishes, the green screens of the past. No. Even then, I was still willing to entertain Dan's 50-minute Hollywood production. He just needed to correct the fact that he's been using propaganda to misrepresent me. All Dan needed to do was highlight the fact to his viewers that I'm a demonstrable realist and the things I stand by. And of course, I don't deny what he terms gravity in any shape or form. It's the cause and effect we can disagree on. Not that I need to entertain that either, because whatever is at play isn't man enough to make the globe Earth theory a reality. But of course, Dan cannot accept or highlight that to his viewers because his bullshit doesn't work. Dan needs flat Earth in his titles, and he needs to use loaded terms that are flat Earth on people like me to misrepresent me, so his viewers are conned subconsciously by thinking I stand by things that aren't my claims. Things like this. Tosh like this, which has been put in the minds of the general public, ridiculous illustrations, cartoons of things that no one believes, but on a subconscious level, anyone who mutters the words flat Earth in the minds of the general populace, these things spring up and all sorts of misrepresentations and bits of propaganda come to mind in the general populace because they've been brainwashed by the words flat Earth, because the words flat Earth now have been weaponized to be used against the people that stand by simple things, science we can test and verify for ourselves. But if you're going to accept those weaponized words that are flat Earth, you are now accepting all the bullshit, the propaganda, the straw man idiocy that goes with it, and you're making yourself look silly. Sorry to admit it, but it is what it is. And that's why Dan couldn't own the fact that he's misrepresenting me by calling me a flat earther, because he knows his videos don't work without the propagandized words that are flat earth. Because when you look at his video titles, his bullshit doesn't work if we put the title how it should be. Rather than totally destroys flat earth, I'm not a flat earther, I'm a demonstrable realist. And of course he relies on the flat earth. This Hollywood production will destroy the cartoon delusion because it's a little bit more believable. But no one believes in the cartoon delusion that is flat earth that is presented to the general populace online. You see how this works? Now let's imagine if Dan corrects his title and puts totally destroys demonstrable reality. Doesn't work, does it? Which is why Dan can't correct himself when he's addressing myself. And Dan's again just exposed himself for being dishonest. If he really wanted me to do this video, he'd highlight the fact that I stand by demonstrable science which can be tested and verified by all. He can't do that because he now exposes his whole channel and highlights to his viewers that he's full of shit. And of course, he can't put demonstrable reality in his titles because his bullshit doesn't work. It only works on a subconscious level with all the misrepresentations that are attached to the words flat earth. Stop using the words flat earth if you are what used to be termed a flat earther. It's been weaponized to use against you. Sorry, it has. I ditched it years ago. I never ever was a true flat earther with maps, models and all sorts. I only stood by science that can be tested and verified by all. The history of my channel, the videos of this channel and the previous one hold sway and stand strong. That was always my claims. Because I knew everything would be used against us unless it was things we could test and verify for ourselves. That's why Dan cannot own his mistakes and his misrepresentations, because he relies on the words flat earth, the propaganda, to misrepresent, because his bullshit doesn't work without the propaganda. Can you see what a silly charade order this is? And then we got the latest kid on the block, Dave McKeegan. Look at the title of one of his latest videos. Conspiracy theorist promises to concede if I photograph the ISS. So I did. Look at his face. Like he's had some sort of result. Dave, here's the thing, fella. No one doubts something flying across the sky on a regular basis that's cited as the ISS. No one doubts that. No genuine people doubt that. Only trolls and propagandists doubt that. So you pulling that face, you had no result whatsoever. If anything, you've exposed yourself for either being naive or dishonest. What's doubted, Dave, is the silly footage we get shown with hairspray fetishes, harness fails, green screen fails. What's doubted is that silly space pantomime footage is coming from the observation we see in the sky. So whoever claimed or challenged you to take your sky observation was clearly at it anyway, and the fact you obliged shows you're either gullible or at it as well. And of course, when you have a look who challenged Dave to his silliness, it's a sock account that no one's heard of. It's a year old. And then you look at some recent comments. This sock account is pushing a pizza or CD Earth, the propaganda flat Earth, to tie in with Dave and his propaganda and Dan and his propaganda. Do you see how this works? Dave takes a picture of something that no one doubts. This conspiracy theorist that pushes a propaganda version of flat Earth, Dave takes his picture, and then everyone claims the result. And of course, the propaganda flat Earth again is put into the sites and shot down, and they use attachment of that tosh and the propaganda in the minds of the gullible to tarnish people like myself. That's why I don't use those words. I'm a demonstrable realist. Your propaganda and your bullshit doesn't work on me. But Pookie here is obviously at it, making silly claims, pushing maps and models, giving Dave McKeegan material where he gets over 500,000 views, gets to pull silly faces and think he's claimed some sort of result. Nah, Dave, for you to have a result, you would need to prove the globe. That would require demonstrable science that can be tested and verified by all. The problem is, me old mate, there is none, which is the whole point, which is why Dan can't address my fundamental claims, because the globe's impossible, which is why you have to rely on very suspicious sock accounts for your material and association with loaded words and flat earth, like all the globe representatives online, for your bullshit to work. It's ridiculous and so obvious, Dave. Yes, you claim the money in the coin, which only gets you more and more involved in it and harder for you to get out. Essentially, you're digging yourself a deeper hole, Dave, and it's historically online for people to see. Same with Dan. I've never asked for a penny. I stand by science to be tested and verified by all. And it's so revealing. I had literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of trolls visiting my account, telling me I'm a flat earther, trying to attach things to me that are my claims. You see how desperate they are. They want the misrepresentations. And they get that through the loaded, weaponized words that are flat earth. You got to drop it. You make yourself look silly by using those words. Stick to science that can be tested and verified by all. Word it however you want. I class myself as a demonstrable realist. That's the way I go about it. They can acknowledge it because it highlights how silly they are. And of course it proves, it nullifies the propaganda. The propaganda has no effects. So they cannot acknowledge that. It's become so obvious over the last 10 days, the after effects of my original video regarding the Lego engineers, Dan, the propaganda, and all the tosh and the way it works. Incredibly revealing, I tell you. But it doesn't work when you stand by things that can be tested and verified by all. And of course, that bookie, suspicious sock account talking about pizza, CD Earths, of course, provides the inspiration for Dave's next bit of propaganda, his latest video, where he produces a CD pizza Earth on the front of his video. You see how all this works? See how obvious all of this is? See how dishonest these individuals are? They make it obvious because they're dishonest. You don't even need to scratch beneath the surface to expose these people. They expose themselves. They can't hold themselves accountable. They can't correct their misrepresentations. All they could do is rely on the propaganda and the algorithms. Dear, oh dear.